So the agenda for today is as follows. I will kick off the call by briefly outlining a few reasons why we think cannabis stocks can turn around in the coming 12 months. Penny Green will take it from there and introduce us to the yield growth, and I will conclude this call with a Q&A session. So let's get started. To anyone that follows the cannabis market, it is an understatement to say that it has been a brutal year for cannabis stocks. So here we have the performance of the Horizons Marijuana Life Sciences Index ETF, which seeks to replicate the North American Marijuana Index. So over a one-year period, the ETF generated a negative return of roughly 47%. So just to get everyone up to speed on why we are seeing this type of performance, we believe it is largely attributed to the following. So the vaping crisis in the United States, which has resulted in 37 deaths thus far, it was noted that products containing THC are linked to most of the cases and play a major role. It is equally important to note that findings suggest products containing THC products obtained off the street are linked to most of the cases and play a major role in the outbreak. Listeners should keep this in mind as it forms a part of our thesis as to why we believe cannabis stocks can turn around. So next we have Hexo, who withdrew its 2020 outlook, citing early signs of pricing pressure. It was also indicated in Hexo's latest earnings report that a persistent illicit market for cannabis and a continually slow rollout of retail cannabis stores in Canada have played a role in dampening sentiment of cannabis stocks. And again, keep this in mind as we move forward. So given this understanding, I want to briefly outline a few reasons why we think cannabis stocks could turn around despite the poor news headlines for cannabis that we are seeing today. So first off, listeners should realize that cannabis is a commodity product. Expecting high margins and a high valuation multiple is economically naive. With that said, commodity suppliers can now break out of what we call commodity jail. With Canada legalizing cannabis edibles, topicals, extracts, cannabis producers now can develop higher margin cannabis products. So for example, here we have Cosan Limited, who is a Brazilian conglomerate producer of bioethanol, sugar, and energy. So look at the multiples that they are trading at compared to a company like Coca-Cola, who is taking the commodity and taking it and turning it into a product. So recent legalization of cannabis edibles and alternative cannabis products in Canada opens an attractive opportunity for cannabis producers to shift from being a commodity producer to a product producer. Now, this should already be familiar with investors and reflected in the share price of cannabis stocks, right? Well, we don't believe so. Due to the extremely slow rollout of retail cannabis stores, we believe cannabis valuations today are pricing in a continually slow rollout of retail cannabis stores and a continual restriction of cannabis supply in the Canadian cannabis market. However, is that fair to assume? So we understand that provinces in Canada have really botched the licensing process for retail stores. Despite the province of Ontario anticipated to comprise over 39% of the Canadian cannabis market by 2024, which is shown on the table on the left here, retail cannabis stores in Ontario has lagged significantly, as shown by the image on the right. The number of cannabis stores per 100K population in the province of Ontario is exceedingly low compared to other provinces. Now, do we have any reason to expect the rollout of retail cannabis stores to speed up? We believe so. So recall the three goals that the Cannabis Act is aiming to accomplish. The first one is to keep cannabis out of the hands of youth. Two, to keep profits out of the pockets of criminals. And three, to protect public health and safety by allowing adults access to legal cannabis. Despite 1 year into the legalization of cannabis, the illicit market for cannabis remains strong. According to Statistics Canada, roughly 42% of Canadian cannabis users are still occasionally buying cannabis from illegal sources. So this number is unacceptably high. Given the dismal rollout of retail cannabis stores, we expect regulators to have learned from mistakes made in the first year of cannabis legalization and push towards a quicker rollout of retail cannabis stores to combat the established illicit market for cannabis in Canada. The illicit market for cannabis has been a key area of concern for regulators in Canada, and we do expect them to remedy this through expediting its licensing process for retail cannabis stores. So in addition, a catalyst for cannabis stocks comes down south from the United States. As listeners are well aware, marijuana is federally illegal in the United States. So when Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell pushed to get a provision to legalize hemp into the Farm Bill, we believe he opened the path for legalization of marijuana products. Listeners should note that hemp and marijuana come from the cannabis plant. As such, it is very difficult to distinguish between the two. An article by Forbes indicated that law enforcement does not currently have the technology to tell the difference between the two plants. So as more states establish hemp laws, confusion between hemp and marijuana is only going to become more problematic to address. Verbatim from an article by Forbes, prosecutors are now abandoning pot-related cases simply because they cannot prove whether an alleged offender is mixed up with the illegal marijuana manufacturing or if they are simply part of the new legal hemp industry. So recall earlier that I talked about the vaping crisis and that products containing THC that are obtained off the street are linked to most of the cases that we see. We believe this issue stems from the fact that marijuana is federally illegal in the U.S. It was estimated that up to 80% of all packaged cannabis products on the U.S. market are counterfeit. So that's a huge number that inevitably must be addressed. And a way to address this would be to legalize marijuana federally to combat the illicit market. This is similar to what Canada hoped to do when they legalized cannabis back in 2018. So before I pass the call to the CEO of Yield Growth, Penny Green, I provide readers with a quick recap. So we expect cannabis companies to shift from being commodity status to cannabis product status. The continual slow rollout of retail stores in Canada may not be the case going forward. The legalization of hemp in the U.S. To pave way for the federal legalization of marijuana, and addressing the vaping crisis in the U.S. through the federal legalization of marijuana. So now I would like to pass the call to Penny Green, who is the CEO of the Yield Growth.
For inviting.
Hello, Penny?
Oh, hi, Colin. This is
perfect. Yeah, we hear you.
Great.
Yeah, if you don't mind, you can just get started on the Yield Growth.
Terrific. And Colin, can you hear me okay?
Yep, you're perfect.
Fantastic. So yes, I'm Penny Green. Actually, I just got married. My name's now Penny White, but I'm the CEO, the president, and the co-founder of the Yield Growth Corp. And we are publicly traded on the CSCR symbol is BOSS. We're also traded in the U.S. on the OTCQB under BOSQF, and we're also traded in Frankfurt. Our goal at Yield Growth is to enhance life with quality wellness products. So as you were speaking to, Colin, it's the product side of the industry that really is our focus. And we create, license, and operate brands that support your optimum health and wellness with a strong focus on hemp and cannabis, although we are now also getting into edible mushrooms, which is another interesting ingredient with a lot of potential. We focus on natural, high-efficiency ingredients. We are forward-thinking, and all of our products are responsibly created. And I totally agree with you, Colin, in the opportunity that lies ahead for cannabis companies that I like the way you said it can now break out of commodity jail. I feel like what we've been working on as a company for the past several years in developing our extensive catalog and stability testing and quality testing our products, as well as developing very strong brands, I feel like we have something a little bit unique. But also, as I can take you through our presentation, you can kind of see what a Cannabis 2.0 company sort of looks like. So just going to our presentation, if we go right to our quarterly revenue, which is on page 7. Are you able to turn to that, Colin?
Yep, I have that right now.
Oh, fantastic. So this is just our past 6 quarters. And, we've been lucky. We have a great team. We've been able to increase our revenues every quarter. And I'll show you sort of how we've been launching our products and doing our licensing agreements in a minute. But most of this revenue is coming from licensing and services, and then just now we're finally starting to get into product sales, because there's a long regulatory hurdle when you're launching cannabis products before you can get into product sales. But we've been able to do licensing agreements to support our revenues. But here's an example of a company that is growing and being successful in a cannabis market that's had a lot of negative press. So that's one thing to consider. And then if you go to page 9 on the slide deck, this is just sort of the outside cover of our product catalog. But this is one of our biggest assets, is really the products that we've created. So we've got over 200 products at different stages of development, different stages of commercialization. The bulk products, everything is created with all natural ingredients, the highest quality ingredients we can find around the world. It's all based on Ayurvedic medicine, which is a 5,000-year-old medicine. And when we first started in this business, we bought a catalog of products that were sort of intended to be blended with cannabis, to be infused with CBD and THC, and were developed out of this Indian tradition. And so we bought this catalog, and then our goal over the past years is how do we commercialize these really exciting products? And so the products are a lot of products intended for pain management, the typical things you would see as topical products in dispensaries. You might have seen them in the black market in Canada before everything went legal. If you go down to the U.S. and you go into California or Washington, you go into a legal cannabis dispensary, you'll see, pain gels, pain bombs, oils. These are the kind of products that form the key parts of our catalog. But there's also quite a number of very interesting skincare products. So you have face oils, face masks, skin cleansers, eye gels, all kinds of things for facial skincare, and that's primarily with the CBD part of the plant. And then we have also edibles, and we have tinctures, and we have supplements and all kinds of suppositories and all kinds of things in our catalog. So what we've done now, if you turn to page 10 in the slide deck, it sort of gives you an overview of some of the brands and how we're rolling them out. So the very first brand we decided to roll out was one that didn't really need that much regulatory approval, Urban Juve, which contains hemp root oil and hemp seed oil. And internationally, hemp seed oil has been used in cosmetics and doesn't require anything other than, your typical coconut oil, really, in terms of regulatory requirements. So we were able to register these products with Health Canada as cosmetics with very little regulatory review, and basically get our products to market. So these products came out in Q1. And as you can see, we were successful in launching our 11 products. Since we launched about 8 months ago, we've been able to sign distribution agreements in Canada, in Colombia, in Brazil, in Greece, and Cyprus, and we're now negotiating agreements for 4 or 5 other territories throughout the world. And we've actually received regulatory approval for selling our products in the European Union, where there's a lot of interest in hemp and CBD products growing, just like there is in North America. And so our products are for sale in retail outlets throughout North America, and for sale by e-commerce to anywhere in the world. And this has been a really great opportunity for our team to develop expertise in the products world as we waited for 2.0 Canada legislation to be legal, and as we went through the basically taking the channels to launch our products in other cannabis markets. So the next brand you'll see here is Right and Well. And by the way, I invite everyone to go to urbanjuve.com and buy our products or take a look at what we have there. The next product line I'd like to talk about is Right and Well. So this is a deal we signed actually a year ago in Oregon, and it's taken us a year to get through all the channels to launch our products, which are now just finally being launched in Oregon. And this is a line of 9 different cannabis products with full marijuana, full THC and CBD. They're really intended for pain management. So our target market is a little bit older. It's like your 30 to 50-year-olds that are going to dispensaries and they're buying products to relieve pain. I mean, we're very limited in what we can say in our marketing for that, but I think generally people understand that when you buy a topical product with THC in it, the intention is you're going to put it on your body for pain relief. So that, it's been a really interesting experience spending a year with the Oregon Licensing Bureau and the group that we're working out with in Oregon called NovaPath, who's our manufacturing partner. and just going through all the steps that it takes to get a topical to the market, in terms of you have to start with your proper strain and your product, and you have to go through all the steps with designing your packaging and getting it reviewed and approved, and the amount of quality testing you have to go through. It's quite a lot. So we've gone through that process, and I think to what you were saying, Colin, it kind of shows you like the slow regulatory process that it takes to get cannabis products to market. But what we're very excited about is very high profit margin once we hit the shelves in the Oregon stores. And as a topical maker that is essentially entering into a licensing agreement with a licensed cannabis company, our costs are a lot lower. We don't have to deal with growing the marijuana. We just had to deal with selecting the strains from the strains available. We produce our bulk product up in Vancouver, and then we ship it down, and we design and make the packaging. But that's outside of the regulatory scope that a lot of LPs have to deal with. And so we're launching that now. Now, the next product in this table, you see the red Right and Well CBD. What we've seen a lot of cannabis companies do in the U.S. is realize the opportunity for launching CBD products. And so we saw the same opportunity and essentially took the product line we developed for Oregon and took the THC out of it and saw what we could legally launch in California as a topicals line for CBD. And I think everyone's aware how fast the CBD market is growing. CBD beauty itself has been estimated to be, could be a $25 billion market in 10 years. It might even be bigger than THC. So we're very excited about this product line, and this is coming out in January. So we're starting really with the same kind of products, so pain gel, massage oil, relief balm, and those sorts of products that you put on your skin for pain relief for Right and Well. Now, finally, in October, topicals became legal in Canada, and the first deal we were able to announce for this was Jack and Jane. We actually announced it the day that they went legal, which was kind of cool. And we're so excited to be able to launch our products in Canada. And so we created this brand especially for Canada because Canada has such strict marketing regulations. You know, we're very limited on what we can do in terms of the packaging. All we can really do is put our brand and the name of the product, and we have some, you know, we have a few things we could do in terms of the size of the box and the color of the box and so on. But what's really exciting about the Canadian market is that because of those restrictions in marketing, it's really quality that dictates sales. And we believe we have such a high quality product that we're going to do really well with this brand. And we're working with a local LP, Geyser Brands, Apothecary. So we're excited about that too, because obviously it's easy to work with someone when they're close by. So that's sort of an idea, like this is sort of an overview of how we intend to launch out over the next 6 months some of our products. I have some executives in the other room right now putting together our 2-year plan, but we really want to come out into the market with another 5 or 6 products over the next year, really focused on the THC topicals market where there's so much opportunity. And the next tab you can look at is page 12. And just thinking about the market opportunity for topicals, once you get into topicals, you're not just trying to take consumers away from the black market, which is the big challenge with selling flower. What you're really dealing with is the international wellness market. And that wellness market is worth $4.2 trillion, which is huge. And if you can imagine, anything that has to do with pain relief is really going to cut into that market and potentially disrupt it. So there is really a huge opportunity here for all companies getting into the cannabis products area. And if you turn to page 13, just a little recap of what happened in the past year and a half with some of the majors coming in and buying up cannabis companies. You know, you had Kronos coming in with an acquisition, Molson, Coors Canada, Constellation Brands, and Altria. And I think that there's still a lot of room for this to happen in the pharmaceutical, in the personal care space, in the cosmetic space. And I think we're going to see that over the next few years. So any company that is creating a product which is potentially going to displace an existing product in the global wellness market, I think is ripe for acquisition. And so I think you're going to see those acquisitions happening in the next few years, and I think you're going to see the value overall of cannabis companies really increase as that happens. So to go to the next tab at 14, you'll see what we've put together for a leadership team for Yield. And we've been very fortunate to attract some of the top talent from Canada, really around the world. My background is capital markets, but we were able to bring in Thomas Bond, who ran MAC Cosmetics for about 6 years as their CFO and COO, and oversaw their acquisition by Estee Lauder. And MAC Cosmetics is probably the #1 cosmetic brand in the world right now. So it's great to have him on our team. Tamara Milk, our COO, was an executive vice president at Aritzia, and Aritzia, I think, achieved, under her tenure, achieved over $700 million in annual revenues and over $1 billion market cap when she left in 2017. So she's got experience really building a company into $1 billion market cap, and it's great to have her. Jeff Smith, who is the head of our advisory board, was the head of Johnson & Johnson. He was president at one point, in charge of their skincare division, and he eventually went on to be their chairman. So I think that's probably one of the biggest companies in the world in terms of personal care products and pharmaceuticals, and he has amazing connections. So basically, if we want a meeting with anyone in the industry, we can get it pretty quickly. The next page goes over other key members of our team. Amy Frankel, our VP Licensing, comes from a background of working at Skechers USA, which is a listed company on the New York Stock Exchange, as well as Aritzia, and in both cases she worked with them through their IPO and grew with them to over $1 billion market cap. Rick Huang worked at some very large companies. He's a terrific CFO and really brings enterprise planning and allowing us to build to scale. Carla Chon just joined us as VP Marketing, and she too is from Aritzia. She's got experience of overseeing an e-commerce site that does over $100 million in sales. So it's very exciting to have this team lined up to support the great quality brands and be so ready to really expand as 2.0 becomes a reality in Canada. The rest of the slides here, you can just kind of flip through to see some of the marketing and some of the overview of some of the products we've done. Like you'll see here on page 16, this is Urban Juve, beautiful skincare powered by hemp. With this brand, we've really tried to play into the interest that consumers have for cannabis, where it might not be an actual desire to have something with THC or CBD, but just to be able to get something into your hands that it's from the cannabis plant. It's really hemp, but it's still kind of cool, and there's a lot of interest there. And so Urban Juve has really been created to meet that commercial interest. Lord Jones is a cosmetic line that recently was purchased for over $300 million by Kronos. And so Urban Juve has kind of been developed as a competitor to that brand. And we will eventually launch a CBD line in the U.S. Our primary target for this brand, as you can see on page 18, is more millennials, so more 22 to 37, a little bit of a younger group than the pain management topicals. And if you just flip through to 19, you can see some of our products. On page 20, you can see some of our media coverage. It's really exciting to be included in magazines like Vogue and Elle, also Vanity Fair, just showing that there is an appetite by sort of mainstream luxury consumers to start looking at hemp products. And as you'll see from 21, our next plan is to launch these products with CBD. And then if we skip ahead to our Right and Well brand, you'll see that on page 24. Right and Well, I think, is one of those lines which has the most potential worldwide because it's full THC topicals, and that's where I say these cannabis topicals products have the potential to disrupt the entire wellness industry. If you think about the opiate crisis, if you think about the aging population, and you really think about how we are servicing pain in our community, this is kind of what drove the legalization of cannabis, is the ability to use cannabis to heal. And so that's why Right and Well is so exciting to us. And so you just kind of flip through these slides and you can see we're using very high-end branding, very high-end packaging. The goal is to get across the quality of our product, which we think is extremely high. We've got some really fun marketing we put together, as you can see from page 26. And page 27 and 28 just kind of give you an idea of what's going out to the dispensaries and to the consumers in Oregon. You'll see the first set of mock-up on page 29 for our Jack and Jane brand. We do hope to come out with a full line of products, and we're just working with Geyser Brands right now to think about kind of what equipment we need and all the regulatory registrations we need to get our products launched across the world. So essentially, those are the key brands that we have in the pipeline for cannabis. Another exciting brand that we're developing, you can see on a later page in here, which is page 32, is Flourish Mushroom Labs. And psilocybin is a very interesting ingredient, substance, which is what magic mushrooms are, that there's sort of a movement around the world towards trying to understand it, possibly legalizing it in some jurisdictions. There's some research being conducted mainly into using psilocybin as a potential treatment for depression, for anything to do with the brain, or anything to do with mental instability, PTSD, and so on. And so it's a really interesting movement. And along with that movement is interest generally in functional mushrooms, which is a huge growing industry. There's all types of different edible mushrooms that have a lot of benefits for the brain. Those studies are well documented. So we're actually coming out with a line of coffees that incorporate different functional mushrooms. It's completely legal. And we've now developed a library, a catalog for mushrooms, and we're sort of getting ready for the next level of the mushroom world, which might be a year away, might be 5 years away. But in the meantime, we're going to have fun with some of these products. So that's sort of the overview of yield growth. And I certainly invite everybody to reach out to me by email if you have more questions.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for the great overview on the yield growth. And I'm sure listeners can really appreciate the comprehensive product portfolio that the yield growth has. And so before we get into the Q&A session, a question that I really like to ask, and I'm sure listeners will appreciate as well, is the long-term plan of the company. As such, Penny, where do you see the company in 5 years' time, or what do you hope the company will become?
Well, it's funny because we're just working on that right now, our executive team. We're first trying to put together a 12-month plan and a 24-month plan. And right now, I would say we're sort of at the stage where we have three brands that are just about launched. One fully launched, two that are getting launched the next month. Our market cap right now is just under $30 million. I would really like to see the company reach a $200 million market cap. That may seem ambitious, especially in this market, but I see that as achievable if we're able to launch another 10 brands and we're able to get those brands into key distribution channels. For example, if we can get our Urban Juke brand into Sephora, for example, and if we get Right and Well, our THC brand, into California, that's a huge market. I think once you get a consumer who will buy your product for pain management, that's a lifetime consumer. So every time we're able to launch a brand, one of our brands, into a new territory, or even launch a new brand into an existing territory, I think we're looking at really increasing our consumer count. So from us, you can expect more brand launches, more territories, basically getting our products to as many people as we can.
Perfect. With that said, let's get straight into Q&A. So if listeners have a question, I believe there's a feature to raise your hand, and I will select you to ask a question where you'll be unmuted. And again, since we have Penny on the call, I ask audience to direct your questions toward the yield growth. Any industry-related questions, I will be more than happy to answer off the call. Again, you can contact me at info@frc.com. So let's compile the questions that we have. All right, so the first question we have is, could you speak about your new subsidiary, Flourish Mushroom Labs, and the global edible mushrooms market opportunity?
Certainly. This is something that we decided to launch after we really started to see the data come in as what we think might be another area where consumers and investors alike get super, super excited about the way they first did about sort of cannabis and CBD a couple of years ago, although the consumer side is still going. But where we see the global edible mushroom market being so exciting is it's basically anticipated to grow to over $62 billion in the next 3 years, which is huge. And it's definitely a trend where people are becoming more educated about the potential benefits of all these different types of mushrooms. So we already have the expertise to launch products with cool ingredients like hemp and cannabis. And so we have the infrastructure to develop and launch products with mushrooms in. There's a couple companies out there already that are super successful, like Four Sigmatic, for example. So we're basically going to launch this out as a subsidiary and continue to do what we're doing in cannabis and hemp, but have this additional really interesting product line.
Perfect. And the next question comes from an anonymous attendee. He asks, Penny, can you please discuss your marketing plans? Cosmetic companies have high margins, but advertising spend is usually large. What is your strategy?
That's a very good point. Yeah, and it's totally true. You know, at first I was like blown away at what looked like was going to be our profit margins on all our products, because there is a huge margin on actually making the product and selling it. But it's a good point that it's very expensive to market. So far we have spent a lot of money on marketing. As you can see, you know, we've been in Vogue, we've been in some major magazines, we've participated in some big events. We're going to be in the Ipsy Glam Bag, which is one of the top beauty communities in the world. They send out 3 million glam bags every month, and users get to choose different products and try them out. So we have a multi-tiered marketing strategy. We do go out into retail. We do have retail support materials. We also have a pretty big e-commerce plan, so that's something that we're continuously working on, and we're continuously revising our digital marketing strategies for Urban Juve. And that's really where the marketing is the most important. When you get into the THC products, you're a lot more limited on how you market, and in some ways that's refreshing because you're in the same boat as all your competitors. So with the THC, it's more about quality and distribution. You still have to have a great-looking brand, great-looking packaging, and as far as the marketing, what you can do there is you can do in-store displays that are kind of unique, and so that's what we're doing there. And then we're also really getting into developing our influencer relationships for Urban Juve, so that's something that investors can start to see play out over the next 6 months.
Awesome. And we just have one more question from listeners. It is, are you able to provide an update on Urban Juve hemp beauty products in China? So, yeah.
So we launched a pilot program last year for China, working within different malls and stuff, and I wasn't really that excited about the results. So we kind of came back to North America and said, well, let's really focus on where we think Urban Juve is more interesting. And so now for distribution in terms of Urban Juve, we're developing it. We're sending a shipment out right now to Greece. Our products are all registered in Europe. We're negotiating for a UK distributor in Germany, and also looking into registrations in South America for distribution agreements that we've signed there. And then we have full support in North America, but I don't think Asia is going to be a huge focus in the future.
Perfect. That's all the questions that we have for the yield growth. And as such, this concludes our call. So thank you, Penny, for being a part of the call. And thank you to everyone listening. Again, any questions industry related to me, I will address offline and answer them. So thank you so much, Penny, for being on the call.
Thank you, Colin. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.